Seems like Lunchbox Lally is going to be kicking sand in the sandbox this time around as Michael Morrissey appoints a special prosecutor to assist in the upcoming retrial of Karen Reed. So, why did he make this decision and why now? Well, as you know it, all this and more in today's video. Hello, 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 and welcome to Alexa's Room, where we are not lawyers, we are not medical professionals, we are not law enforcement, we are just people who have opinions about all things going on in the true crime community, including this crazy concert that is going on outside literally in my backyard right now. It is a legitimate concert. I don't know if you guys are hearing it. I have my noise cancellation on and all that jazz, so if you hear any random like extra bass, just know that is a actual concert happening as I'm recording this. So hopefully it doesn't ruin the video. So appreciate you bearing with me. Let's get into it. So this announcement came earlier today on the Twitter X's, first by Christina Rex, who reported it that a former lawyer for James Whitey Bulger. So, if you are unfamiliar, for those of you who are not from the Massachusetts area, Whitey Bulger is a very well known Irish gangster from the 80s and 90s, I believe, who was represented by the same guy that was just appointed by DA Michael Morrissey to assist ADA Lally in the upcoming retrial of Karen Reed. Interesting draft pick, don't you think? So, prominent Boston attorney Hank Brennan, a seasoned defense lawyer whose past clients include gangsta James Whitey Bulger, has been tapped as a special assistant district attorney to lead the prosecution team during the January retrial of Karen Reed, authorities said earlier today, Wednesday. So I want to go through. I don't know who this guy is, Caleb Schillinger. Was he on the original team and just like somewhere in the background? Is he some kind of paralegal? I don't know. I haven't really done any research into him. Or is he also a new face that has been added to the team? Because if I recall from my recollection, there was only Laura McLaughlin, and Lally took the reins with 99% of the arguments that they made. I think we only heard from Miss McLaughlin like once or twice throughout the entire trial and pre-trial hearings. So I don't know who this Caleb dude is, but maybe I'm just not remembering him because he's that irrelevant. But Brennan made a statement, and don't you mistake that he got some clapback too from our boy AJJ, Alan J. Jackson, saying, quote, "The news that Michael Morrissey has decided to use taxpayer funds to hire an outside lawyer to prosecute this case speaks volumes about his confidence in his own team." I mean, I think he could have just left the statement right there, but no, the clapback goes even further than that, folks. They can bring anyone they want to court. And you can tell Alan Jackson, the way that he's like wording this statement, is he's fired up. He wants the opportunity to take on somebody who can actually not give him a run for his own money, but somebody who's going to actually make things a little bit more interesting, perhaps in the courtroom. Because as we know, Alan Jackson also used to be a prosecutor as well, too. The same prosecutor who was responsible for getting a conviction against Phil Spector. But again, people tend to forget that and they like to focus in and zero in on the fact that he represented Harvey Weinstein. So I think it's pretty ironic considering Michael Morrissey hires the same dude who literally represented one of the most notorious gangsters in Massachusetts state history to help assist in prosecuting this particular case. Like, he's staking his whole career on this, Michael Morrissey. This is his Hail Mary pass, I feel like, at this point. We will beat this unjust prosecution just like we did the last time. Like we've said to Mr. Morrissey previously, do your worst. We'll see you in court, and we will see them in court indeed. And, you know, the more and more things spice up, I mean, I hope for the sake of Karen Reed that this doesn't go to trial again, because it just, from a moral and ethical level, it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. But for pure entertainment purposes and just seeing Alan Jackson and Yannetti tear it up again, all over again, and exposing even more and more, especially now that Karen Reed has a new set of attorneys representing her in the civil suit against Paul O'Keefe and the O'Keefe family that was filed earlier this month. So I think things are only going to get spicier and spicier, especially now with the FBI really digging in to the Sandra Birchmore case. So again, from pure entertainment purposes, it would probably be amazing to see the two of them duke it, or the three of them rather, duke it out. But I mean, I hope for the sake of Karen Reed and the sake of John O'Keefe that it just gets dropped. I mean, was this the move to make? No, Morrissey. The move was not to hire somebody else to assist in a case that should have never been brought to trial to begin with. The right, correct choice would have been to just dismiss the case altogether. Just drop the charges. Just drop the charges. You would have won back the community potentially. I mean, you did do a lot of damage there, make no mistake about that. But I mean, you would have been able to at least kind of redeem yourself, perhaps, in the court of public opinion. And after all, I think this is interesting timing, because now Michael Morrissey has a little bit of competition coming up in the 2026 election for Norfolk County DA. And this also broke right after those juror interviews dropped with Turtle Boy. So again, one has to speculate, was this something that he was already consciously brewing? I don't know, but I do think the news is really, really interesting.
Well, it may be 2 years away, but the race for Norfolk County District Attorney is already heating up. Two candidates have thrown their hat into the ring to try and take the position of embattled DA Michael Morrissey. New at 11, our Kirsten Glavin explains why this is already turning so many heads. What should be a beacon of justice, still shrouded by claims of corruption and doubt.
There's obviously corruption going on in his county.
Michael Morrissey, what is he hiding?
Over the months, there have been continuous calls for Norfolk District Attorney Michael Morrissey to step down from his position. And now two people are vying to take his job in 2026.
I've become frustrated, especially as of late, that the general lack of objectivity and integrity in the investigative process in Norfolk County has led to essentially an erosion of the public trust and confidence in that office.
Craig McClellan is an attorney with his own practice in Cohasset. The former assistant district attorney in Suffolk County says he's been practicing law for 20 years and is also upset with how the Karen Reed and Sandra Birchmore cases were handled by the DA's office.
They are examples of cases where there are clear problems with a lack of integrity and objectivity.
McClellan says he's focused on transparency to bring back trust.
We need to get out there and meet with residents and meet with community leaders and listen.
Also running for the DA position is Juna Perkins, an attorney from Dedham with more than 30 years experience as a prosecutor and litigator.
I really just think that Norfolk County deserves better.
Perkins, who has also served as an assistant district
They do.
attorney and assistant attorney general, calling for a reprofessionalization of the office and an unwavering commitment to do the job.
There has to be a clear message that no one is above the law, no matter who you are, no matter what your relationships are. We should be a model for justice, and right now, we're not.
Now, we did reach out to the district attorney's office to see if DA Morrissey intends to run again in 2026. His office did not return our phone calls.
Well, I mean, it seems like that's their style, right, folks? But I do think it's interesting that not one, but two people are bidding to run for DA. And I think it's about time, because to my knowledge, DA Morrissey has not had any opposing running mates for the last 10 to 11 years that he's been in the Norfolk DA's office. He's also been a senator too, which is absolutely bananas. He's buddies with Maura Healey. So there is a lot to be said there. So I wouldn't completely hold your breath. I personally don't know anything about the two. they seem to be saying the right things, which is all things that the public has been saying and want to hear. And I'm glad that they addressed, Sandra Birchmore. And it seems like it is a step in the right direction. I haven't heard anything about either of the candidates. I'm sure that people like Sleuthy Goosey are on the case. So until we get updates like that and I can find some additional information to share, I'm not going to really speak anymore on behalf of that, but I do think it's interesting that now not only does he have the federal investigation probe, people like Josh Levy breathing down his neck, but now he also has the competition. And, unlike they reported, Michael Morrissey is very much going to be running again for DA's office unless he um, gives up his seat in office before the election, because as we know, he was collecting donos a couple of months ago where he had a whole fundraiser event too. And there was some notable cast of characters that were there as well too, leaving the parking lot. I think there might have even been a standout. Excuse me. So he very much, unless he's just collecting donos because he literally is the ultimate grifter, I don't know, but there's that. So let's check out this press statement from the DA's office about this new special prosecutor, right? Let's check it out from DA Morrissey. Norfolk District Attorney Michael W. Morrissey today announces the appointment of Special Assistant District Attorney Hank Brennan to lead the Commonwealth's retrial in the case of Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. Attorney Brennan, a former prosecutor and longtime defense attorney, has over 25 years of experience in state and federal courts and has experience with complex law enforcement matters, says DA Morrissey. Now, I wonder if we're going to see Bev twirling her hair as she is communicating in court with this special prosecutor, right? This special assistant district attorney. Attorney Brennan said on his appointment, I assume full responsibility and all obligations for prosecuting this case and will do so meticulously, ethically, and zealously, without compromise. He further stated, I have two core obligations. Whoa, that's really zoomed in. I assume full responsibility and all obligations for prosecuting this case and will do so meticulously, ethically, well, that's a bold promise, and zealously without compromise. Also a bold statement. He further stated, I have two core obligations. The first is to make certain that Karen Reed receives a fair trial. Miss Reed will receive the dignity and fairness that every defendant deserves in our criminal justice system. Again, these are all great words to be using, and you can tell he's trying to regain the trust that has been very much lost in this community. But actions speak louder than words, so we will have to ultimately see. But don't hold your breath, folks. The second is to ensure that the facts surrounding John O'Keefe's death are fully, fairly aired in the courtroom without outside influence. So that's interesting. Without outside influence, and a lot of people are like, oh, is this a dig at the Free Karen Reed movement? And I could definitely interpret it that way. But more shockingly to me is the fact that he says outside influence. What about without inside influence, right? I guarantee that I will work tirelessly with the trial team to prepare this case for trial in January of 2025. Yeah, if it doesn't get dismissed by then. I look forward to Attorney Brennan working in concert with the existing trial team of Assistant District Attorneys Adam Lally, Laura McLaughlin, and Caleb Schillinger, said Morrissey. As this is an ongoing criminal matter, no further comments will be forthcoming. coming. Well, of course not, because why would you? What is transparency, right, folks? It means nothing to these people, nothing. So that included the statement from Brennan. So who is Brennan? Who is Hank Brennan, aside from the former attorney of one of the most notorious gangsters in Massachusetts state history, who also ultimately led to I think he was also convicted as well too. So Hank Brennan, this dude over here, he's a highly experienced attorney. So it seems like they almost copy and pasted his bio from his website, right? A highly experienced attorney with a demonstrated record of successfully defending all types of criminal cases, from the common to the most complex. He's represented hundreds of clients and tried and won over 100 cases, demonstrating remarkable success in the state and federal courts. And it's funny because it's like you literally have to not only find a special prosecutor to assist in this case, because you saw what a train wreck Lunchbox was in the courtroom the last time. I mean, so now he's like, oh, let's just use even more taxpayer money, not only to prosecute Karen Reed, a factually innocent woman again, but to prosecute her and then use more taxpayers' money to fund the retainer for a new attorney, because Lally can't get the job done. So who else has a recent trials? Let's see. A defendant was involved in a motor vehicle accident. This is interesting. So this is probably why he wanted her. During transport, there was a disagreement between the accused and the trooper. The trooper beat the accused, causing significant injuries, and claimed the injuries were caused by a fall at the station. The defendant was acquitted on all charges. DV, probation violations. Licensed medical professional was falsely accused by his girlfriend of DV. The accusations led to 5 separate cases: violations of terms of release, incarceration, and extraordinary personal loss. After the first jury trial, the ex-girlfriend was a demonstrated perjurer, and after submission to the DA's office. Interesting. Other related cases were dismissed. So I wonder, and I know that people are going to do tons of digging into this. This just broke today. So like, there was there wasn't too much information I could really find in terms of just like his past. But I mean, this is interesting. Assault and battery, dangerous weapon on a police officer. So it seems like Morrissey was like, okay, let me find the guy that would be most likely to be on our team and to appease the public. Like, look at this guy's resume. It's clear why they tapped him. He's been named one of the country's top 100 trial lawyers by the National Trial Lawyers Association. He's also an adjunct professor of law teaching at trial practice at Suffolk University Law School. So he's a total like Massachusetts boy. So interesting. But again, aside from him being Whitey Bulger's former attorney, Turtle Boy, coming in with the receipts, also shared. And I was curious because I was like, dude, there's no way that Morrissey would be like, oh, let me hire outside help unless he's somebody that I have hand selected, because that's how he operates, right? He hand selects people. That was just like in the case regarding his disgusting predator friend, the real estate mogul. What is that scumbag's face? I can't remember. Peter O'Connell. Yeah, Peter O'Connell from the O'Connell Management Company, who we lightly talked about in one of my last videos. I'll link it at the very end of this video. Because there was a conflict of interest. So he handpicked another prosecutor to assist in that prosecution. And then the victim, unfortunately, was unalived in a car accident in a car that wasn't owned by her. So I mean, talk about shady stuff. I mean, there's some digging that needs to be done there for sure. But this is what he does. He handpicks people. So my speculation brain was like, okay, well, maybe he's a donor, right? Maybe he's somebody who contributes to the Michael Morrissey fund, right? Well, interestingly enough, he isn't. He donates to pretty much every other district attorney and DA candidate, according to Turtle Boy, including a alleged artist, Ricardo Aroro. Aroro and Rollins, who is Rollins, Rachel Rollins, the former U.S. attorney who he used to butt heads with, got his money, but Morrissey didn't. So, I mean, this is as recent as 2018, $150. 2014. Look at all the, actually, as soon as 2023, $200. Look at all these different Rachel Rollins, 2018. So it's pretty interesting. Why would he handpick somebody who supports or supported at one time or another his arch nemesis? I don't know. And more so, why would Hank Brennan accept this task? So Rachel Rollins accused 4 other DAs of misogyny for inserting themselves into a Suffolk County business. Now, interestingly enough, if you recall from earlier in this video, we talked about one of the bids to run against Morrissey. Craig McClellan, who is also a former assistant district attorney in Suffolk County. Now, he's not part of this, but I think it's interesting that there's a lot of overlap, right? A lot of people, and I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that everything happens for a reason. I believe that people talk. So, let's read a little bit into this, right? In a case linked to the sentencing of 2 teens, 17 and 18, for the unaliving in Boston in 2011, the state Supreme Judicial Court is allowing Suffolk County Superior Court to hold an evidentiary hearing to consider new research about brain development between a juvenile and a young adult. It's a case that could lead to first-degree unaliving, suspects being tried as juveniles or as young adults, yada yada, all the way up to age 21 as opposed to the current cutoff of 17. So this led to issues with these 4 attorneys. So it's been about 9 years since Javion, I'm assuming, I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name, Blake, 16, was shot to death in Dorchester, and since then those convicted of his unaliving have been handed life sentences. One defendant, who was 17 at the time of the unaliving, was handed a sentence of life with the possibility of parole after 15 years. The other, Sheldon Mattis, who was 18, was sentenced to life without parole. Watts and Mattis were convicted of M1 along with 4 other charges in 2013. When Blake was killed in 2011, Watt was 17, but his 18th birthday was 18 days away. He was found to be the one who pulled the trigger, according to the news release from the Suffolk County DA's office. Mattis was 18 and 8 months old at the time of the killing. The release said, and as an adult, he was handed the more severe sentence. He was found to have given Watt the GUN and identified the victims. A joint venture theory was used in the case. Motion to intervene. So again, this is where the conflict between Morrissey and Rachel Rollins and the kickstart of the FBI investigation into Morrissey's office all really started to begin. Motion to intervene from 4 other district attorneys details. In the same news release, Rollins notes that 4 other district attorneys, the Essex DA, the Plymouth DA, and Norfolk DA, Michael Morrissey, and then Cape and Islands DA, Michael O'Keefe, filed a motion with the SJC asking to intervene in the case or have it sent onto the state legislature. And you know that your boy was a senator at one point, so he's got the connects. But that motion was cast aside by the court. In the release, Rollins said she believes the motion from the other 4 district attorneys had to do with them questioning her ability to do the job. In a filing opposing the 4's motion, Rollins said it is without precedent or legal basis. She called the move by her peers nothing more than a misogynistic wolf in sheep's clothing, yada, yada, yada. So lots of tension here. In the release, Rollins also spoke of how both defendants were found guilty. Remember, it was the Suffolk County DA's office that actually prosecuted Mr. Mattis and Mr. White. We secured guilty verdicts and stood by the victims, survivors, and their families during the grueling court process. We have also notified of every situation of the recent filings and will continue to do so throughout the entire process. We filed a brief with the SJC in support of the jury verdict and guilty findings. So she's essentially saying, to cover her butt, that we support the conviction of these 2 perps, but not the sentences that they received. For the 4 men to imply that for the 4 men to imply that my experienced and able team of ADA assistant district attorneys can't handle an evidentiary hearing is outrageous. The professionals here are some of the Commonwealth's most skilled in handling cases involving homicides, GUN violence, and other litigation, yada, yada. So then they responded. They were pissed at this. And Morrissey came out with his own. So that 2 or 3 of them came together. Yeah, district attorneys, Blodgett, Cruz, and O'Keefe. So 3 of them came together in a joint statement. I think O'Keefe made one on his own. But then Morrissey says in his own statement, the motion wasn't personal, and he's also concerned about what could have happened throughout the state due to the Suffolk County case. This is not personal. It is not specific to Suffolk County or the facts of the underlying case. The SJC has set this as a test case that may change the precedent statewide. That's going to get really annoying if I keep doing that. The SJC stated that they wanted decided based on scientific record, interesting, by interested parties. Somewhat unusually, they did so by sending it back to the Superior Court in a way that only one office has the ability to offer such evidence. It could have landed in any office, but it landed in one of the 3 offices, which had articulated an opinion that the sentences are unjust or unconstitutional. And you know what's interesting about all this is like, you know what's unjust and unconstitutional? The fact that you were prosecuting, or rather re-prosecuting, a factually innocent woman, Michael Morrissey. Our motion to intervene was so that we would be able to submit scientific evidence for the court to consider, which cannot be accomplished by filing an amicus brief. It had nothing to do with the investigations, cases, and appeals in Suffolk County. We did not and do not have any intention to interfere in the underlying case for the Suffolk DA's right to seek what she believes is a just and fair sentence. But we do have more than a dozen victims' families who have processed the same trauma of their loved ones unaliving in the context of knowing that the unaliver has been sentenced to life without parole. When the SJC undid life without parole sentences for juveniles on Christmas Eve 2013, the impact was crushing. Oh yeah, because now you really care about victims' families. Well, it doesn't really seem like that so much because, again, hello, Sandra Birchmore much, but okay. So that's their beef. So what ended up happening? Well, the SJC rebuffed their intervention, including Cape and Islands DA Michael O'Keefe last week from intervening, in a case that involves parole eligibility for juvenile offenders serving life sentences. The attempted stoke tensions between them. And again, I'm not going to claim to know a whole lot about Rachel Rollins or her beef with Michael Morrissey, but I do think it's interesting that he handpicked somebody, unless it was at the advice of one of his superiors, who was like, you got to pick somebody who the public wouldn't suspect you have, any kind of ties to, somebody who would even say doesn't like you. I mean, you looked at that screenshot from the tweet that Turtle Boy shared of all the donations that that Hank Brennan has made over the years supporting all of these different political parties, all these different DAs, and all these different people. So Michael Morrissey was never on the list. And I'm just a little confused about the exact choice behind it. I mean, no doubt about it, if you are going to prosecute Karen Reed again, Lunchbox Lally is definitely not going to be the guy to successfully do it. But then again, nobody's going to successfully do it, because at the end of the day, and Alan Jackson said, like, we're ready. We're ready to bring this. We're ready to bring it harder than we ever brought it before, because we ain't got no quit. And I'll leave things off with this. Mark Betterow, the great Mark Betterow, said it really well. Been a lawyer in New York since 1998 and seen almost everything since then. One thing I've never seen is a DA's office bring in a ringer for a trial without recusing themselves due to a conflict. Which, I mean, the Karen Reed case is all one big giant fat conflict, right? Interpret that as you will. Massachusetts taxpayers, if you live in Norfolk County, question why your elected officials are incapable of trying a unaliving case without outside help. Karen Reed is never going to be convicted. And again, I have to agree, she's not not on Alan Jackson or David Gannetti's watch for sure, or Elizabeth Little. Let's not forget about her. But gosh, what like fascinating news this week. I mean, there was so much. It's so hard to say, like, oh my God, what are we even going to like create a video on? I thought I was going to be doing all stuff on the Adelsons this week, and then that turned into a whole other fiasco. But my God, I mean, do you think that this was Michael Morrissey's attempt at just trying to see this through to the finish line? I mean, the move here, it's like, if this is your attempt at trying to hear the people, you're doing it with like one ear completely muffled, because what they are trying to say, your people are trying to say, is drop the charges. Prosecute the real folks involved. In the words of Mark Betterow, how much more tone deaf could you get? But what is even more shocking to me is the fact that this guy is taking on this case. I mean, I don't know. Now, what I'm really curious is learning more about his potential running mates in the upcoming election of DA's office. I assume there's going to be even more digging that's going to go down. From the research that I have done, I haven't really seen anything that's stuck out to me particularly from the little bit of research I've done. I did see on like one Reddit thread that this one person who claimed to be a defense attorney, opposing counsel, had faced Craig McClellan in a couple of different trials as opposing counsel, but who knows what's true and what's not. I mean, I don't want to speculate too much, just more ask questions. And that's kind of what we're all about here on Alexasrewm, is having conversations and asking questions and being like, why was this the move to make? I mean, it's just more ironic more than anything, especially with this draft pick. But hey, you know what, Morrissey, you do you, because at the end of the day, we all see past that. We see the truth, we see justice, and justice will, I think we can all agree on this, no matter what quote unquote side you're on, justice will prevail. And hopefully that means you punching in your last time card. And with that being said, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you hit that subscribe button, make sure you hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next Karen Reed update from me. Make sure you hit that like button because that tells the YouTube algorithm that this is newsworthy news. And I mean, again, I know I've said this in every single video, but the more people we reach, the more pressure we put on people like Michael Morrissey to, I mean, I don't know, he's a lost cause at this point, but for other law enforcement offices and for the FBI, like Josh Levy, hello, like, I mean, we know that you guys are doing something, so we know that there's something brewing, but for those who should be held responsible to do the right thing, to do the frickin' right thing, tell the truth, be honest, and drop these dang charges, because at the end of the day, freeing Karen Reed equals justice for John O'Keefe. And unless you can present legitimate evidence proving that Karen Reed's 7,000-pound vehicle ran over John O'Keefe or hit him and caused his death, I mean, I don't think you're going to be able to convince another jury of her peers, but that's just my opinion. So I will see you all in the next one, and I hope this concert wasn't too bothersome to you, but I'm going to go watch it now because it sounds pretty fun. All right, take care.